It almost feels back to 2023 Penn State, where we came out of that game and everyone's tweeting out and trying to write articles and think pieces about who to blame. And like, yo, Cade played horrible. The O-line played horrible. Arnett's like a bad coach. The skill's not good. And it felt like that again. We did nothing at a high level outside of like 4 plays. Welcome back to the ANF Podcast. Today we're going to do a breakdown of Iowa versus Iowa State through a schematic review of how Iowa attacked Iowa State, how Iowa State attacked Iowa, and really run through a succession of plays to outline where teams were successful and why. Yeah, and on rewatch, it was actually very enjoyable to watch Iowa State's offense versus Iowa's defense. And the 3 things we called for in the season preview and prior to this game was, first off, we want to see 12 personnel not be matched with a guaranteed 4-3 look from Iowa. And we saw that throughout the entire game. I think we expected, we called it out in the Phil Parker defensive breakdown. We called it out in pretty much every episode we had. Iowa State's going to run 2 tight ends. Don't match with 3 linebackers guaranteed. Make them establish the run game first, and then we'll move into that 3 linebacker set if we have to. Iowa never changed their personnel based on 2 tight ends. We kept Lutmer on the field the entire game. We played one of our best players the entire game. And it was a really nice thing to see for Phil to embrace that instantly. You would only see Rex Roth on the field in 3 tight end sets, so when they're going extremely heavy. So once again, good adjustment by Phil. I think we'll see that all year given the strength of these safeties. We're going to keep them on the field. It'll be interesting how teams counter that now. Knowing that you don't have that personnel twinge, you could see probably Rutgers and maybe Minnesota try to heavy up and then run right at Lutmer. Iowa State did try to attack the edge multiple times given that we were playing Lutmer and you had 2 tight ends to block him. But in the end, I think it was the right move to make. Secondly, we wanted to have our corners play in phase. We wanted them to be pressed against this team, and we want them to be pressed all season. I think Lee and Hall have the athletic ability to run with guys. And I think Hall, it's turned into the corner we've been expecting since he was a true freshman playing against Purdue in 2022. He finally reached that level of like, this looks like an all Big Ten corner, was extremely patient at the top of the routes that he was playing against, was in the hip of almost every receiver other than maybe one deep post. He was kind of behind and Beck floated a little bit. But he played a really good game, and it's really, encouraging to see. Lee still, he played them in that, in phase 5-yard cushion, but he got beat deep, obviously, in the second drive of the game. Had another opportunity to maybe have the, back-breaking touchdown against him, but it was the correct decision to make. Let these guys run. Don't make them have that, discern that space between 8 yards and a receiver off the line of scrimmage. So once again, that was something we called for in the offseason that we saw. And then lastly, the rotation of the D-line kept that D-line fresh the entire game. I remember seeing we were down 6-3. We rotated our backup D tackles, and I was like, that's kind of something we would not do generally in the position we need a 3-and-out or something like that. And you saw Merriweather on the field and Brian Allen on the field a lot, late into the game. So I think the defense, obviously those 3 components, as well as the defense performance, I think you have to give them, an A- in this game. Given that their only touchdown was on a short field, given that Iowa State's personnel is really freaking good. I think that's where, if you want to break into how they played, and my main takeaways, Beck was, we called him NFL before the game. He looked NFL the entire game. Decisive, accurate, knew exactly what he was looking at pretty much every time. Even after a split second, he would know what he was attacking. He missed high. He was inaccurate about 5 or 6 throws, but majority of the game, he was putting balls on helmets and giving, if they catch 2 or 3 more fade balls, that's a much different performance for him. And Burkle and Brahmer and Hansen, those 3 are going to be really strong players for for Iowa State for the rest of the season and are really talented guys. So I think to kick it off to you, how Iowa State attacked us, but just giving a full summation of like, that was a really high level side of the ball, and it was awesome to watch. At the top of it, if they were able to execute 1 or 2 more of those fade balls, they really could put the game away. Beck, we highlighted in the preview, that is his best throw. He enunciated that, 3 or 4 times. Really strong play from him. Still a wild scenario where you only had him at 100 yards passing before the tip pass. And that's just a product of how Iowa played. And I think the easiest thing to break into to discuss how they attacked Iowa was with the choice to play press man out wide or match concepts out wide where Hall and Lee had their eyes on the receiver. What this allows Iowa State to do from a discernment of what coverage you're playing against them is, traditionally, Iowa's going to play backed up at 7 to 8 yards with those corners with eyes on the QB. So that allows for the possibility of those guys to roll, a 4-man roll where that guy's now going to either move to a squat or be able to react quickly to the flats. when he is head up, eyes on the receiver, that he's in a match or man-to-man concept. Where you go with that is then flat routes to your tight ends and receivers. Mm-hmm. And what we saw was then Iowa State receivers using out-breaking routes and deep routes off the break to turn the corner's eyes away from the play, and then various combinations to isolate our linebackers on plays to the edge. And that really was the scheme of Iowa State, was to isolate our linebackers, particularly Harrell, in speed concepts to the edge. And they do that in a litany of different ways. They created some false steps with Sama, where you would isolate Shire on the weak side, where he gets to the edge with pace. And then they also did that several times with Burkle and Bramer with quick flat routes to the short side of the field or to the flats. And that's really where they attacked in the pass game with the flats. They also did a really good job when we didn't play that technique of hitting the curl. Again, that's about getting the ball out in time and having some chemistry with the receivers. I think in the run game where I'd like to go is Iowa State had a lot of really intelligent wrinkles to attack this off coverage defense. The first one that I break into is I think it's the opening play for Iowa State. They run this mock inside trap where both guards pull at the same time. What this tells the play side linebacker in Shire is he thinks he's seeing power concept. He immediately widens. The left guard moves up to Harrell on the interior. But what's so difficult about it is it gives leverage on the two D tackles we're playing. So the center can block out. He has leverage on the one tech. The pulling guard now can move to Graves and the three tech. And then you're building up to the linebackers instantly. It's a really quick counter to just put Iowa on its heels. If you can answer with a quick trap like that on the interior, you really have to start adjusting your calls on the defense to account for that play happening again. And just really slow feet by Harrell on the play as well. The next was their variation of counter sweep. So what we called out in the preview was Iowa State's ability to run this counter power look where you're pulling two tight ends to the opposite side of the formation in a kick-out formation where you're really going to try and attack and C-gap. How they flipped it on its head, and this is what actually Michigan State did in 2023, and I think it's going to actually be a very common way to attack Iowa because you just saw how the fits worked for Iowa. It just did not fit well, and it's very confusing for these off defenders to try and fit this because you don't know if you're seeing power or counter. But with this, two-man moving tight end pull, you see Harrell act like he's fitting power. You see Entringer, the play side safety, act like he's fitting power, and you see Rexroth on that side also fitting power. The other quick aspect of it too was the running back was aligned right of back at the start of the play. So it even spells out more that you're likely going to see a counter power, that downhill look you'll see teams run. He flips after the snap and then runs a sweep with it. I don't think I've ever seen that type of technique. That seems like a very pro level play. I think that might have stole that from an NFL team. Another aspect they used was sweep action to the edge where you isolate Harrell in a one-on-one with the linebacker. This happened directly after Campbell called timeout when they saw they had that man-to-man concept.
He didn't get that timeout,
I don't think he did either.
I rewatched it. It is bang, bang. No, I don't think they should have called it, but moving on.
So what you're trying to do here is create a single false step from this middle linebacker, banking on that he's not going to be able to run with enough pace to get to your edge here. How they slow his feet down just enough is they have Becht on what looks like could be a read, straight ahead pull.
It's actually a fake shovel pass.
Fake shovel pass is what slowed it down?
Yeah, well, and the first aspect of it too was our DNs are taught if you have a power run block down from the right tackle, Merriweather's at D end, you always crash with it because you're expecting power. And it looks like power too. You have pulling guards, the tackle pushes, blocks down, Merriweather rides it, and then creates it. Actually, he blocks himself because now you're jet sweeping to that edge. And that just shows exactly what you're trying to design in offense is influencing somebody based on their responsibilities and the technique they've been taught. And Merriweather's always taught, I got down block two hands, write it down, close the hole, and then all of a sudden they're jet sweeping Hanson off the edge. It's that's beautiful. And it's a massive 3rd and 3 call, and it just shows it shows the ability to understand what alignment do we expect him in and how to influence a D end, probably a half second into that play.
Yeah, that's exactly what Michigan State did 2 years ago at a really high level. I expect this to now become, a trend where you'll see various trends break out against the Iowa defense. Once you start seeing how teams can influence their technique, this is going to continue to be seen over and over again. Within the passing game, because you have really strong alignment, in that press man look, press match look, everyone in the stadium knew eventually the deep ball is coming, and that was a really strong choice by Phil. I think what it's spelling out is that we think that these guys can run with them. It's what we called out in the preview, is we think that Lee and Hall can run with these receivers. They obviously hit the one to Eskleton on I believe their first scoring drive.
Second,
yes. And then, but other than that, Hall made just incredible play after play, the top of the route. And that's where, we broke out the top. But if those go the other way early, this game is not close. And it took forever for Iowa to find their feet. And eventually we just were able to basically play keep away from Rocco in the second half because they were able to hold on to the ball for so long. But when you compare the two the two offenses, the level of preparation and design and creativity between the two was dramatic.
Well, the number one thing I would say the difference is how many times did you see Gronowski hit his back foot with the ball out? One time? Like, that wasn't a third and long, all-out blitz, one read.
Just an out route to
Gill.
Yeah.
Like, first and second down, and the ability to attack the entire field. I mean, you felt pressure from their receivers. You felt pressure from their tight end. You felt pressure of their running back in the backfield, backed in the run game, power runs, zone runs. Like, it was an all-encompassing offense that hit with timing. And still, it's like you have that offense still struggle to score points. It's a tier up from your offense, from execution and design, without a doubt, in week 2. And it still struggled. That's like the levels to college football. Like, to look at Iowa's offense and the way we managed to score points and the way we executed, and to think that there's another tier that still can score 16 points by hitting a 54-yard field goal, it's very concerning. And it just kind of shows us there's distinct levels. There's another level above Iowa State that also can score 30 in that game.
Yep.
But I think you look back if you look at the full scope of this, and I think now we're, obviously an Iowa podcast covering this Iowa defense, and you think about how we play Iowa football, it's super frustrating to see a performance like this wasted from the offense turning the ball over in a massive moment after the defense settled in. Special teams absolutely pissing down their leg in a few moments. You think back to the first kickoff, you get, Weegen getting a personal foul, backing us up instantly, punting, having a chunked punt, getting them at a 45-yard starting position. In that moment, you get the ball first. You should have the ball at the 25. If you even go 3 and out, they should have the ball at the 30, maximum, probably 25, 20. And you're just giving them 20 free yards off nothing. And then finally, when the defense gets back-to-back stops, they get a huge red zone stop, absolutely massive. It cuts it to 6 point. You basically take their first punch in this crazy environment. You hold them to 6-0. The defense, started slow but did their job. You get back-to-back 3 and outs, maybe 1 6 and out there. You've completely settled it. Gronowski's starting to look more comfortable. It feels like it's a 6-3 game with Iowa. Like, all right, that was a nuts start. And now the offense throws a pick 6. And it's common from Leicester.
Not a pick 6, but essentially.
Essentially, not a pick 6, but down to the 20 and it leads to the only touchdown drive.
I thought that game might be 31-4 after, or 31-3 after that.
When we did that, when that play happened, I'm like, that was the most un-Iowa thing I've seen in the last 5 years. And it's kind of crept up in Leicester's games. There's been a lot of un-Iowa moments on offense. You think back to the UCLA pick when we had a lead, I think it was 10-7, and Sullivan threw it right into 40's hands, and it completely kind of flipped the momentum of that game. And, the Missouri pick when we're up by...
The Iowa State pick last year. We have not married Leicester and Ferentz yet in terms of, aggressive aspects. You either got to be aggressive and have the ability to attack early in the game and not play scared, or have a team that protects the ball. You can't have this, we're not going to try to score quickly, and then we're also going to throw back-breaking picks that blow the game open. It was... Right when that play happened, what are we that's what Iowa State has done in the last 8 years prior to 2022. They threw those picks when they didn't need to. They were aggressive when they need to. And as much as you want to talk about the defense in its own right, and I think you have a very successful top 15 defense, I think you have a lot of high-end secondary play with Lutmer and Entringer. Every time you think about the defense, you're like, well, the offense absolutely did not play complementary football. And special teams didn't catch that punt, backed us up to the 2-yard line. You threw a pick. You
just made consistent errors. You had a C- game on special teams in a must-win game. It was just like when the game ended and they drove that, super high level execution on that final drive. I think the best throw of the game, we can definitely clip it out, is 2nd and 10, curl route to Sowell.
Yeah. That was the game. I wish we would have
incredible.
I wish we would have stuck in that press phase mode. I understand you don't want to give the deep ball and
we showed him squat though.
He was off coverage. He was at 6.
He was at 2 right before the play, and he drops last second. So Rocco understands he's got deep safety holding the middle of the field, and he's got another corner. He knows it's cover 4.
Mm-hmm.
He knows that side of the field's cover 4 or quarters. But to discern it, no other QB is discerning that. He's like every other QB sees squat, and Rocco literally, I don't know how he did it, but when Lee dropped, his anticipation and like eyesight to see Lee like sit his back foot and to rip it, it made no sense. It's far side of the field with a squat corner hitting the curl route 9 yards. It's the throw of the day, and like no other podcast is going to call that out. But like if you go back and watch like what he's looking at pre-snap and then ripping that freaking ball the way when he did, it made no sense. Like that's Beck's like going to have a lot of NFL film from this game. That might be the most NFL throw of the day.
Yeah, we'll walk through 3 more plays I got set up, and then we can move to the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah,
but
the ANF Podcast is sponsored by Eye Surgeons Associates, proudly serving Eastern Iowa and Western Illinois for all your eye care needs for over 40 years.
Things we pointed out in the pregame, the QB power game and QB sweep game with them was really successful. Their numbers they can get with Burkle and Bramer leading those blocks. Those guys are such good blockers at the point of attack. It's going to be something they can go back to over and over again if you don't align aggressively enough. Even if you align aggressively, Miller had really good blocks in those plays as well. So they're just in a really good spot with their QB run game. Their first touchdown, sadly enough, I called it out in the pregame. You're likely going to see a fade of Bramer against Harrell. It came in their first touchdown, the only touchdown of the game. They had a 3-receiver set. They motioned to get 4 to one side. It's the way you get Harrell into a man-to-man concept is by getting 4 to a side. You usually would have been able to protect him in most scenarios. Harrell has outside leverage when the play starts. He goes for the big lunge to try and disrupt timing with Bramer. Bramer anticipates it, swims him, gets his head around. Harold panics. If Harold gets his eyes back, I think the biggest teaching tip I could have had coming into this game is get your goddamn eyes back against Beck, because he's going to try and put it by your ear hole. He's not going to try and put one over your head or outside of you. He lets the guy make plays on it. If Harold gets his eyes around, he's got a chance at a tip ball. Granted, I still think they probably go for it on 4th and 2 and execute some kind of QB run for it. But there's a frustrating play where you have outside leverage and you give it up for no reason because you whiff on a press. The 2 other plays, the jump pass by Becht. So what's frustrating about this is they ran a near identical scheme to this against Kansas State.
An almost identical moment.
An almost identical moment. This has to be part of the prep. It's a big moment, 3rd and short. You're likely going to see some kind of leak from Burkle. Granted, it's set up a little bit differently, and they've had success with the QB sweep game, so you want to probably be quick to it. But you can tell Harrell was taught, because the minute Burkle gets behind him, he reacts to it. It's not like it was something he didn't anticipate. He gets beat on that. The other final play, and I think we'll probably see it for a year straight, just like we saw the Noel out and up last year, is the tip pass. And this is, I think, a great explanation of why Iowa can develop a successful defensive unit over and over again, is because they have so many subtle things they do well. And one of them is the D-tackle tip pass. At the snap, you have a 5-wide look. At the snap, Becht, for shorter QBs, they need to find windows if they're going to throw on the interior. You have a guard tackle window that looks wide open. At the snap, Graves moves just ever so slightly into that hole, gets his hand up, and gets a tip. In 99 out of 100 times, you're playing a too high look against a tip ball that's carrying that high. It's a pick, and we win the game.
At worst, it's an incompletion. There's almost never a chance where the offensive player has an opportunity to make a play on a tip ball. You've seen it. I mean, it was for everything that happened in that game. For it to come down to the most Iowa play of all time to win it, a carom off the first line, a carom off the second line. How many times you see Schulte just, scoop that or some other safety. And then for it to, right when it went against us, you could see our sideline. We were behind their bench, our own bench. It just felt like the air came out.
Well, Entriger had a chance to break it up as well. Like he had two hands to the ball.
Yeah.
So
Burkle's got insane timing.
the body control he can do over his head. He does it multiple times.
He moves in slow motion.
Yeah.
Like when you see him make plays on the ball, especially even the jump pass, that ball is wobbling. It's got a weird spiral to it. He literally sees it. It kind of sets his ball hands up right here, and then one hands it like perfectly the way it's spinning. It's like that guy's got extreme ball skills too.
Yeah, he's got real talent.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what we can mention on the other side of that, because we'll get into it, is yes, that was a break, but you juxtapose that against the breaks that Iowa received.
Yeah.
The muff punt, one of the more BS call. I would lose my mind if I was an Iowa State fan.
I think Kinnick would have booed for 30 minutes. I would have probably rushed the field. Like, you're telling me that you pick up a flag that shouldn't have been picked up.
Yep.
You then call a muff on it, and then I think it was given to us right away, though. That was one of the most fortunate plays after we just pissed our pants for the first four drives.
Then
we did nothing.
Yeah.
And then you get a break like that, and then you just, you get one first down and kick a field goal.
And then the Overby, essentially the back-breaking play of the game, it should have been the back-breaking play. I think it was 13-10 at the time, was the Overby seam fade that he gets broken up by Entringer. He still, that has to be brought down by
I think that's tie. I think it's a tie game.
Is it a tie
I think
game?
it's midfield tie game 13-all.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Yeah.
And
that's what's you're asking, how good Becht is and how good, the receivers are higher end Big 12 guys. They're not unreal, but you're still asking for a tough throw. It's like what this defense is always pushing you to. Like, all right, hit 20 yards downfield, put in the shoebox. Like, even if this is a super talented guy with a super talented coordinator and got what he wanted, you still got to make that throw, and it's really high level to make still.
Yeah, and then you mix in, Overby had another one against Hall earlier in the game. He doesn't bring down, and then the deep ball, they got the look they wanted. Hall gets his eyes back and makes a hell of a play on the ball. I think Becht played a great game. It just, they let him down a couple times with some, back shoulder fades that he put in, the smallest windows you could possibly imagine. And
yeah. All right, so I think we end with a defensive takeaway. Where do we see this defense going in the next 10 games? Because I think that's where you're out of football, and you're going to be successful this year. It's got to be probably a top 10 unit with how the offense is looking. Can we reach that against the teams we're about to play?
So we outlined the corners as probably the weakest position at the start of the season. I think they are now playing at the top of the heap, if not, probably top three.
Yeah, top three.
And you could argue that Hall might have had the best day of anyone.
Yeah.
And he was a real question mark. And I think playing this press man phase coverage, you're obviously sacrificing some levels of disguise. And Hall has really not shown an ability to negotiate that space and play the influence game. But what you're open up to is teams who are going to be hyper aggressive. I think about Indiana, Michigan State, teams that have big arm QBs that want to take shots down the field. You can kind of invite that action now without a lot of worry. And when you can invite that action with an ability to cover, now that offers an ability to play more possum than you're used to at Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're not going to have to play this backup game when you have corners start playing at that level. And that's going to lead to hopefully more 3-and-outs, more shorter drives, and not have to play back up, and then we're going to beat the death out of you in the red zone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my takeaway from the defense is that it has the opportunity to pitch some great games. I think that's what going forward. I think you were fortunate not to have two plays burn you more, and maybe a little more high-level receiver talent for maybe like a USC could hurt you in those situations, and a Michigan State. But you just played a team that knew exactly what it was on offense. It's been that way since, the Bramer-Burkle connection of last year. Bramer since 2023, we saw him on the field. Becht obviously in the system for a long time. That was a high-level opportunity, high-level offense that could have put up 300. It's going to put up 300 yards a lot. It's going to put up 30 points and, high 28 points a lot. And you clearly showed the opportunity to hold it, maybe to even 9 points in that game. If a couple of things break your way and you don't have special team and offensive errors to put you in bad situations. So
that's pretty, when you break it out like that, it's impressive.
It is impressive.
And you had to make plays, but you made them. You were in phase.
I think Hall he looked like a guy that all Big Ten corner. And if you can have that, that changes this defense pretty quickly.
Dramatically.
So I think it's time to move on to the offense. Starting out, just like how Iowa State aligned. And this is it almost feels back to 2023 Penn State, where we came out of that game and everyone's tweeting out and trying to write articles and think pieces about who to blame. And like, yo, Cade played horrible. The O-line played horrible. Barnett's like a bad coach. And then the skill's not good. And it felt like that again. We did nothing at a high level outside of like 4 plays. And we were fortunate that Gronowski has extremely good athleticism. That was my takeaway from rewatch. Everything that was successful was not within the scheme and not due to any other personnel other than him just running away from people and extending plays. And it's a good sign that, this guy is an FCS athlete. We call him FCS Jalen Hurts. He looked like FCS, he looked like Power 5 Jalen Hurts. He made in the run game. He looked like he had made a lot of plays with his legs. So I think that's something, a positive takeaway is you can use him throughout the season to, creatively with his runs. That is going to be a strong aspect. We were really good in 3rd and short and 4th and short majority of the game. It's why we are stable in the field and run power and, use those concepts. You basically took the ball away from Beck for the entire second half and almost won this game after playing really bad 2 quarters with just getting first downs. There is paths to victories with that scheme, and Iowa really leaned into their identity in that moment. But there's so many negatives beyond just all right, our short yardage power run game with our QB is good, and he can scramble. That's essentially where my takeaways are right now.
Well, I remember you gave me some crap in the preview of this game where I'm like, we're not going to drop back and throw. And I think that is come to fruition more than ever. This is a single read passing offense for the rest of the season. 3rd down and long is going to be a made-up affair, and it really was in this game. What upsets me greatly is how we chose to choose personnel in this game. So I don't know what the exact numbers are, but 11 personnel sets at a shotgun. What is the idea? You already have injuries at receiver with RVZ and Bowie. Where I would have really liked to see this, where we could have actually broke out a fairly effective scheme, maybe, is if you could have played your 2 X receivers in, condensed sets and blocked the edge corners. That have been a huge issue for us.
I agree. I think it's scheme breakdown. You played a dink and dunk game with interior runs.
It's disgusting.
Conceptually, when we break it down, they are tacklers in the back end. They don't rush the passer. They don't match 12 personnel. What does that mean? Don't run 11 and run up the middle.
That's always called for us. Don't run up the middle.
Don't run 11, run up the middle. We played a Big 12 offense. This defense was designed, I'm pretty sure, in Texas. I'm pretty sure it came out from the spread. It was a counter to the spread in Texas football, where usually most things come from is high school first. But when you play 11 personnel and base out the way we did and don't run overloads and just run up the middle, first off, when is the last time we ran tackle pull in Iowa football history?
Tackle pull, we call that out and say, don't run tackle pull.
Yeah.
It makes no sense against these fits.
Because their safety's running free and he's screaming.
Also, your entire your hope is that you can press that backside D end vertical.
Yeah.
That is where you should be looking for those.
Yeah.
They're going to fit front side like demons. We talk about front side fits being their strength.
You should have been legitimately. All right, I'll push back on the scheme being the core issue. I agree with you.
Boot pass was great too.
Boot pass was great. Should have been 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, heavy up, run right at them. And that's what we did, just out 11 and then we actually ran a little bit in the second half. We ran some 2 tight ends to the short side of the field, where you should have been doing that all game. To defend the scheme, there was opportunities there. I think the coaching staff can go, when they sit down, I don't think Ferentz is going to fire off, you blew this with the scheme. When he watches the first pass to the opening 3rd down to Gill, Gronowski dirts it. Should have been a first down. You watch another 3rd down to Gill, Gronowski dirts it. You watch an RPO to Gill, he drops it. You watch Terrell Washington's first zone run be an incredibly bad read. You watch a missed block at the point of attack on 58 on an outside zone concept. You watch people have no idea how to align majority of the game from receiver position.
Phillips probably messed up 15 alignments.
You have no RVZ, no Moulton, no Ostranga, no Bowie. You're 2 weeks into the year, and Gronowski didn't read something in the pre-snap, the entire game. You lost up front to a superior front six to your offensive line for the start of the game. You ran concepts that had numbers, and you didn't get more than a yard sometimes just by not blocking them. I think 88 had a really strong game. If I had to watch that back. They changed their personnel sets, scheme-wise, to account for 12 personnel. They no longer, we talked about how they roll up that safety, and the 4 biggest runs in 12 personnel was a tight end head-up block on that safety. You can watch the video back. It's Caleb Johnson exploiting that matchup the entire game. They never rolled a safety into the box. They kept their box 6 personnel with 3 DNs and 3 linebackers. We didn't have the opportunity to set the edge versus cornerback play, even in 12 personnel. Against safety play. And then when they did heavy up, the only way they heavied up was keeping their corners low in 12 personnel. And Cooper and Jontez played those great. And I think we had like 1 or 2 opportunities where we got a head up block on them, but they were ready for it. Like they were ready for 12 heavy. And I don't know if it's scared to shit out of Lester early.
Receiving blocking was abysmal.
Once again,
you needed RVZ and
you're throwing out Weegen, you're throwing out Gill, you're throwing out Anderson, you're throwing out Phillips. You have none of those guys you want to head up block. And you have 5 200-pound bodies. I think they had the personnel advantage as a distinct personnel advantage of how they wanted to play. Bacon and Neal are really good players, and they made them their edge defenders the entire game. So even in a 12 personnel set, running the ball with 2 tight ends, it would have had more success early on. You're not going to have 2 first downs in 5 possessions. I agree. I think we came out and ran the wrong scheme. I don't know how much that changes the end production of the offense. That was fortunate to catch some breaks. And fortunately, Gronowski made a lot of plays off schedule. I think you did a great job pointing to some really bad designs that were only going for 3 yards or really limited in what we could do out of them.
Talk about the three third and longs we saw.
Yeah, and I think the one aspect, if you want to go to scheme, what really concerned me was we had the same solution. We had the same third and long call at least 3 plays and 3 critical plays. When it's 6-3 on our own, it's a 3rd and 10, and Gronowski ends up fumbling a snap. We're in a heavied up personnel. We have Vonamy and a running back in the backfield doing a 7-man protection because the first time we had a 3rd and long, they all out blitzed us. And they consistently did that. They would all out blitz us a lot. But we had the same solution in 3 plays, massive plays. It was that play, we fumbled the snap. Our 3rd and 10 on the 50-yard line, we run the exact same concept again against man, but Neal does a good job of sitting in the hole, and it affects the throw to Gill. And then 3rd and 13, you've ran this play twice. I think you ran it a few times against Albany, if I can remember, too. The exact same concept. 3rd and 13, it's the game's on the line. You still got time. You called your timeout. You're in a position to win this game still. You just need to convert this 3rd down, get the momentum rolling, and go tempo to get a long kick for Stevens. You call the exact same play again. It's the 3rd time you call it this game on 3rd and 10. And then in the pre-snap, they're in clearly cover 3 or cover 4 or some sort of zone concept. So you should not be having the 2 vertical fades to your receivers and Gill on this like skinny
a 3-man concept up where you're trying to attack vertically. It makes no sense.
It legitimately, when the play started, I was like, they're not running that, are they? Like Gronowski should have checked to something else. He has less than 5 defenders in the box. They can't even pressure against 5 to bring a one-on-one pressure. And we run this concept, and it was like the aha moment of like, we legitimately don't practice 3rd and long. You cannot tell me if you call the same play 3 times in the same game, in the same situation, and you don't match what they're running against you, you have legitimately no idea what you're doing on 3rd and long. That, if you want to come at scheme, that's the call I'll call out going, what are you doing? But I think the rest of it was like, Gronowski had his eyes in the wrong spot a lot. We dropped passes. We miss blocks. They're really good defensively. That's where I live. Little more.
But you didn't even have progression. So on that same call, you have an opportunity for tight end delays against off coverage zone where they're bailing out. On that fateful 3rd and 11, wherever it was, you had Vonnegut do a late delay. You can tell it never even enters Grano's mind that he has a delay on. If you could have cut that down
it was large, and I don't think it
but
was.
If you have a 4th and 6 is a hell of a lot different than a 4th and 18 or what it came down to, and that felt like very much a theme for the entire passing attack was eyes downfield, not really knowing what I'm looking at, and then not having a check down anywhere. Mm-hmm. He never came down to a check down. I don't know if we even gave him a check down a lot of times. Mm-hmm. I think a couple times we would run, a late delay curl in the middle of the field against linebackers that are sitting there too. Like there just wasn't anything that ever surprised me that, when I'm processing a passing play, I count numbers, I count alignment. I say, okay, is this going to play out exactly as I anticipate, or is there going to be a small wrinkle? I didn't see a tiny wrinkle the entire game. Mm-hmm. Our only third and medium play was run everyone off and isolate Gill on a slot safety and try and get him on an out route.
Yeah.
And the biggest, this is my last play I'm going to break down so I don't lose my mind. But after the muff punt, you're sitting in 3rd and 7 on, I think, like the 12, maybe a little farther backed up than that. You have 3 receivers to the left, and you have Vonnegut by himself as a tight end right. You have, I think it's like a 7-man front from Iowa State.
Mm-hmm. Overloaded to that side.
Overloaded weak side. You have 3 guys pre-snap that are sitting over Vonnegut. Your line shifts left.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
If that might be on center, that might be on QB. I don't know who it is. That is the most obvious. This guy who's sitting over here, that's linebacker, he's sitting whole in a man-to-man concept. These 3 guys are coming weak side.
Yeah.
And you shift away from them.
Yeah.
There is a clear lack of teaching or some preparation, concentration around the passing game. Mm-hmm. And it showed up.
Yeah.
And my only explanation is you really should have seen against 3-man front, where if you can guarantee pre-snap that you're not going to get pressure, you should be attacking deep and then in the intermediary passing game for most of the game when you are going to throw. Mm-hmm. It should not be underneath unless you're planning on doing 18-play drives the entire game. It must be an absolute disaster in practice at intermediary, middle of the field passing, mm-hmm. 10 to 15-yard passing, and deep shots must be a disaster.
Or there could have been no targets to throw to.
You're not, because you don't have big bodies you can see.
You have no tight ends. You have no big bodies. The only way you can actually get the ball to these guys is if you can give Grano a clear line of sight, and if he misses, it's out of bounds. I think that
it was just a giving up. We came into the game saying we can't throw the ball. We're not going to try.
Yeah, I think it just looked like Petrus.
Then why are you in 11?
No, yeah.
That's where it's so incongruent.
Right.
I agree with you. If you want to play the personnel game that we couldn't match up personnel-wise with them, then you line up under center, you tighten up the formation, you make Grano's throws, 12-yard throws out the middle or quick out routes to the condensed set, you protect your edges, and you run up the middle of the field.
Yeah.
And then you get him in boot game where him on the edge is a danger. When we got him in boot 2 or 3 times, he was able to pick up yardage. Mm-hmm. The boot game should have been a major part of this if you're not protecting an edge.
I think it looked so different. Like, we expected deep shots to be an aspect of it. They never had a run. We never had a run game that mattered to their safeties. And that's why the deep ball, we called 2 or 3 shots. One to Seth Anderson, I got a PI. We had a long mesh, I was trying to hit it. And then we had actually our first touchdown drive. We had a deep shot as well. And we never got in close. I mean, these safeties were all over it. They had depth instantly. We never could climb to them because there was no real fake either. It's out of shotgun. So F that. They can see the ball the entire time.
That's what again, your shotgun fakes are always inherently going to be worse than under center fakes.
Yeah. So
it's incongruent.
I think it
was a Frankenstein idea of how to attack a team.
Well, it was I think my initial reaction was that this wasn't Lester's game plan. I think he outsourced this to Warren, the new analyst. I think he said, Warren, we'll bring you in the spring. You got Iowa State. The fact that you saw slow mesh, that feels like his game planning. The fact that you attacked only based on alignment, right? They played the 5 umbrella. What do you do? Short passing game. What do? You run up the middle. You get numbers. It showed a lack of understanding of who Iowa State was. It showed a lack of how they developed and bred this, made this team personnel-wise to play a beefy back 5, a really beefy up front, and, essentially not have bendy guys. And you just played right into their personal hands. You played right into this defensive coordinator's hands the entire game. And
you had a play.
If you would have established a run, you could have done the things we had talked about. But why are you ever in 11 running against these guys?
Why are you in 11 running and pulling tackles?
Yeah. And to give Iowa State credit, this is a personnel. They've done an incredible job developing this personnel. I think the key factor is that those corners played a great game. But I think Bacon's, probably reaping NFL. Orange is obviously incredible. I think we had a hard time ever getting movement that mattered there.
Cooper's a stud.
Neal's a stud. We clearly attacked 19. That was the game plan. We went gill at him the entire time. As we mentioned in the pregame, the slot safeties are probably where you want to go. They just have, they're 200-pound safeties. You got to throw at them.
But why no overloads?
We did.
Why no formational overloads?
Yeah.
It seemed like we didn't know how to attack zone.
Yeah. The output was, in the end, thank God Grano had legs, because nothing looked right other than maybe one play.
It was completely broken.
Yeah. Yeah, time to do picks. Let's do it.
I'm just going to go one pick this week, and it's going to be Cal versus Minnesota, first half under 22.5. I think with what we saw from Minnesota's run game, being kind of manhandled up front by Buffalo, you can lean on Lindsey. He looked good. Like, he looks like he can play the entire field. I don't know if they have the receivers to run away from a Power 5 team. And PJ is just not going to want to put the game in a rookie QB's hands on the road.
Yeah.
So you're going to likely see a ton of runs without a lot of success. I think Minnesota really struggles to move the ball in that game. And I think Minnesota's defense has talent. I think they do some, pretty unique things. They also, play a too high look most of the time. So you're going to likely see a pretty slow pace there. I can't get away from first half unders.
Yeah, it's obsessed.
Yeah. Went 1-1 last week had my Iowa State -2.5, and then had the under first half under 22 in Iowa State, and that late Grano touchdown blew that up. But still, we'll take 1-1.
I'm going to continue my weird lines pick. I think you see South Florida beat Florida, beat Boise, right? Start 2-0, 18.5 point underdogs to Miami. Give me Miami. That's my one pick of the week.
I like it.
Awesome.
Go Hawks.